It's not luck, it's not talent. It's ritual, quiet, repeated choices. Most people overlook, especially in that first hour of the day, because your morning isn't just the start of the day, it's the start of you, your mindset, your energy, your direction. And if you waste that sacred window, you don't just lose time, you lose momentum. The Stoics knew this. They taught that the first act of every day should be done with full awareness, not chaos, not distraction, not rushing through life, half asleep, presence, discipline, purpose. So if you're ready to stop drifting through your mornings and start owning them, you're in the right place. And if you appreciate this kind of content, there's one simple free way to support the channel. Hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it. Some people call it a routine, others call it a ritual, but whatever name you give it, there's no denying that how you step into your morning has a ripple effect across everything that comes after, and that ripple, it either brings order or chaos, clarity or confusion, strength or scattered energy. Most of us don't realize just how much power lies in the first few minutes after our eyes open. We roll out of bed, check our phone, let the world in before we've even checked in with ourselves. But those first moments, they're not just about getting out of bed, they're about deciding who's in charge, you or your autopilot. Think of your morning like a row of dominoes. The first one, the way you wake up, the thoughts you allow in, the way you move or don't, sets everything else in motion. Push that first one with presence and purpose, and build momentum that carries into your work, your relationships, your mindset. But if that first domino falls by accident, hit snooze, grab the phone, scroll without thinking, you set off a chain reaction that's harder to stop. The rest of the day becomes a game of catching up. Not leading. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." That's not a poetic luxury. That's a practice, a reminder that your first thoughts matter. If your mind is clouded by news messages, distractions before you've even planted your feet on the ground, how can you expect to move through the day with clarity? And it's not just Stoicism saying this. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, pointed out that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Most of our meanings are driven by unconscious habits. We don't choose them, we inherit them from yesterday. But the moment you pause, take a breath, and decide your next move consciously, that's the moment you stop living on repeat and start living on purpose. Aristotle believed that excellence is not an act, but a habit. That means your greatness isn't hiding in some future achievement. It's being built right now in the quiet decisions that no one sees, like whether you snooze or stand up, whether you scroll endlessly or sit in silence. These small repeatable acts, they become your identity. You become what you do consistently, not what you think about doing. So here's the question. What's the very first thing you give your energy to in the morning? Is it reactive or intentional? Does it calm you or speed you up? Does it pull you closer to who you want to be or further away? Plato once said the beginning is the most important part of the work. That applies to art, to life, and especially to your day. When you own your beginning, you own your rhythm tomorrow. Don't start day by reacting. Start it by choosing. Choose to pause, choose to breathe, choose to lead your day instead of chasing after it. Because that first move, it isn't just about waking up, it's about waking up with direction. And if you do that even once, you'll feel the shift. You'll realize you're not powerless against your habits. You're not stuck in some loop. You're capable of setting the tone, of shaping your energy, of deciding how the day feels before it even begins. Some battles are quiet. They happen in the dark before the sun rises, when no one's watching. And one of the biggest is fall between you and your alarm clock. It's easy to brush it off, just 5 more minutes, right? But the truth is that moment holds more weight than we like to admit, because it's not really about rest, it's about resistance. And when you snooze, you're not just postponing your day, you're postponing yourself. Every time you roll over and silence the alarm, you're sending a subtle signal to your mind. I'm not ready, I'll face life later. It seems small, harmless, but over time, that tiny act of avoidance becomes a habit. And that habit becomes a story, a quiet one that says, I don't follow through. The Stoics warned us about this. The danger of drifting into comfort. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human." Being not to chase comfort, but to step into purpose, discipline, then isn't some harsh taskmaster. It's the doorway to freedom. It's not about punishing yourself. It's about proving to yourself in the smallest way possible that you're someone who shows up, especially when it's uncomfortable, especially when your emotions tell you end of over. And here's where psychology backs it up. Carl Jung talked about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we avoid, and in those early hours when we choose snoozing over rising, We're often avoiding more than just the coal, we're avoiding effort. Friction, growth, but the only way to bring light to the shadow is to face it, to move toward it. Not away, and sometimes that means doing something as simple and as difficult as getting up when you said you would. Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." That applies here too, because when we don't examine our habits, we fall into them blindly. And nothing blinds us more than a life on autopilot, waking up late, rushing, apologizing to the day before it even begins. But when you decide even once to meet the morning head on without delay, something shifts. That moment becomes a message. I am no longer delaying my growth. Plato taught that the soul is pulled by three forces: reason, spirit, and desire. Hitting snooze, that's desire pulling you back into comfort. But rising when it's hard, that's reason. And spirit working together, that's alignment, and alignment is where real strength lives. Here's something practical tonight. Place your alarm on the other side of the room. So when it goes off tomorrow, you have to stand, and when you do, don't rush, don't grab your phone, just breathe, stand there, let your body wake up before the world does, and say to yourself out loud or silently, I show up even when it's hard. Because that's not just about waking up, it's about becoming the kind of person who keeps promises, even the quiet ones, the small ones, the ones no one else sees. And when you build that kind of trust with yourself day after day, you start to walk differently, think differently, live differently. There's something oddly powerful about the first thing you do after waking up. It seems like it doesn't matter, you're half asleep. No one's watching and your day hasn't really begun yet. But that first choice, what you decide to do with your hands, your attention, your energy, that choice has weight. It's shaping the way your brain approaches the rest of the day. And that's exactly why something as simple as making your bed isn't just about tediness, it's about training your mind to finish what it starts. The Stoics believed in starting the day with purpose. Seneca said, let all your efforts directed to something, let it keep that end in view. Making your bed might seem trivial, but it's an intentional act, a small one, yes, but a decisive one. It tells your brain, this space matters, this moment matters, I am in control of what happens next. That's not just routine, that's design. And let's talk about psychology for a second. Completing any task, no matter how minor, gives your brain a dose of dopamine. It's not about the task, it's about the completion. That feeling of I did this builds momentum. The mind doesn't wait for big wins to feel accomplished. It responds to the consistency of wins, big or small. And when you start your day by doing rather than planning or promising, you set a tone of action, not delay. Now, think about your space. Your environment isn't neutral. It's constantly sending signals to your subconscious. If the first thing you see when you get up is a room in disarray, that clutter begins to echo inside your head. Distraction breeds distraction. But if you take 30 seconds to smooth your sheets, fluff a pillow, bring order to your corner of the world, you shift something internal. You create a moment of calm, a quiet kind of control that ripples outward into everything else you touch. Socrates once said, the beginning is the most important part of the work. It's easy to focus only on the big goals, the career you want, the habits you're trying to build, relationships you want to improve, but none of that begins at the top. It starts in the smallest places, the kind that feel too ordinary to matter, the kind you're tempted to skip. And yet that's exactly where identity is built. When you make your bed, you're not just cleaning, you're reinforcing the standard. You're saying, this is who I am. I take responsibility for my space. I take pride in what I touch. That's a mindset shift. And the beautiful part, you don't need permission. You don't need motivation. You just need to decide that your surroundings reflect your values, not your laziness, not your excuses. Plato believed that order in the soul was connected to order in the world. He wasn't wrong. When you create physical order, even in small ways, reduce mental noise. You stop reacting and start leading, and that leadership doesn't have to be loud or flashy. It can be quiet, unseen, something as subtle as a smooth bed and a clear mind. So tomorrow morning, take a moment before you rush into the chaos. Before you pick up your phone, before the world asks anything of you, return to the basics. Start with order, start with presence, start with the decision to finish something not for anyone else, but for yourself. Because in a world that moves fast and rewards overwhelm, making your bed is a way of slowing down and saying, I'm in charge here. And when you do that, when you begin with control, clarity, and calm, you're not just managing the environment. It's strange how easily we offer kindness to others and yet struggle to give even a fraction of that to ourselves. We'll cheer on a friend, send a heart emoji to a stranger's post, and tell someone else, you're doing great. But the moment we look in the mirror, the script changes suddenly. It's judgment, criticism, silence. Most people start their morning already in the red emotionally. Not because of the world, but because of the way they speak to themselves before the day has even started. We live in a culture that's conditioned us to expect validation from the outside. A like compliment, an email, a text, but if none of that shows up, what happens to yourself? It shrinks. It withers not because it's gone, but because you've outsourced it. That's the trap, and the solution is surprisingly simple, but bold. It starts with facing yourself. Literally, Mel Robbins introduced something called the mirror high five. Yeah, it sounds silly, feels awkward, but it does something. Most of us desperately need it. Reintroduces encouragement from within. Because the truth is, you spend every waking moment with yourself, and the relationship you have with your own reflection is one of the most important ones in your life. And here's where Stoic wisdom steps in. Marcus Aurelius once said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. So if first thoughts each morning are self-doubt, regret, or shame, what do you think you're carrying into the rest of your day? But when your first message is, I'm proud of you for showing up, or even just, we've got this, the entire tone shifts. It's not about ego. It's about alignment. It's about starting the day with a message that builds, not breaks. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, emphasized the importance of acknowledging the self. He believed that real strength comes from integrating, not rejecting all parts of who we are. That means reflection shouldn't be your enemy. It should be your ally. The mirror shouldn't be a place of critique. It should be a checkpoint, a place where you check in, not check out. And when you think about it, the mirror is the only place where you meet the real you without distraction. No filters, no roles, play just you raw. Honest human Plato once said, the first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself. That starts here, not in some grand achievement, not in external approval, but in the quiet moment when you look yourself in the eye and decide to be your own supporter. So here's what to do tomorrow morning. Before you touch your phone, before you let the noise in, walk to the mirror. Stand up straight. No need for speech, no need for perfection. Just look yourself in the eye and give a simple high five. It may feel awkward. It might feel ridiculous. That's okay, do it anyway. That discomfort, it's a sign you're doing something unfamiliar. But necessary. Aristotle taught that we become what we repeatedly do. Encouragement is no different. The more you practice speaking to yourself with respect, the more natural it becomes, the more your brain starts to believe that, yeah, maybe I am someone worth rooting for. So tomorrow, high five yourself, not for show, not for anyone else, but for connection, for strength, the quiet courage it takes to keep going, to keep trying, to keep showing up, because you don't need perfect self-esteem to move forward. You just need to stop being your own worst enemy. Give yourself the kind of encouragement you're always waiting to hear, because you're the one who needs to hear it the most. And when you start your day with that kind of energy, you stop needing the world to validate you. You validate yourself. And that changes everything. There's a moment, a fragile, powerful moment that exists between waking and doing. It's quiet, still, undisturbed. And in that space, before the world enters, you have a chance to remember who you are and who you want to be. But most of us don't. Protect that moment. We give it away instantly, unconsciously, to a screen, that small device next to your bed. It's not neutral. It's a direct line to the noise of the world. Messages, notifications, opinions, expectations. You scroll and suddenly you're not thinking your own thoughts anymore, reacting to someone else's life, someone else's urgencies, someone else's drama, and all before you've even taken your first breath of the day with intention. The Stoics warned us about this kind of trap, the danger of allowing outside influences to govern our inner life. Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. What could be more out of your control than the chaos of the digital world before sunrise? When you grab your phone, first thing, you surrender your sovereignty and you let headlines, feeds, and other people's needs set the tone for your day before you've even remembered your own. Carl Jung understood the impact of unconscious behavior. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that's exactly what happens when you reach for your phone out of habit. You're not making a choice. You're running a program, and that program is pulling your energy away from presence, away from clarity, away from yourself. Now, here's the simple truth. Your attention is your life. Where your attention goes, your energy follows. And if the first thing you do every morning is give that attention away, you start the day from a place of reaction instead of direction. Plato once said, the first and best victory is to conquer self. You don't conquer yourself by controlling every detail of the day. You conquer yourself by mastering the little moments that shape your behavior, like what you do and what you don't do right after you wake up. Let's talk psychology for a second. Your brain is incredibly impressionable in the first 20 to 30 minutes of the morning. That's when your subconscious is most open. It's a window of vulnerability, but also potential. What you feed it matters. If you start with chaos, your nervous system lights up. Stress chemicals start flowing. But if you start with stillness, breathing, movement, silence, your system stabilizes. You begin with peace. And that peace becomes a buffer for whatever the day throws at you. Socrates believed that self-knowledge was the foundation of a good life. And what better time to connect with yourself than when you are untouched by the world's demands? That time is sacred, not in a religious sense, but in a human one. Sacred because it is yours. Sacred because you can still choose who you want to be instead of becoming what the world pressures you to become. So here's the challenge: put your phone out of reach tonight. Better yet, leave it in another room. Buy a cheap alarm clock if you need to when you wake up tomorrow. Give yourself 20 to 30 minutes of nothing. No alerts, no scrolling, no external voices. Just breathe, just thought, just you walk slowly, stretch, sip water open. Winter, write down one thing you're grateful for. Let your mind wander. Let your soul arrive, because you weren't built to start your day in a frenzy of inputs. You were built to lead it with intention. Aristotle taught that we are what we repeatedly do. And if the first thing you repeatedly do is surrender your mind to distraction, then distraction becomes your default. But if the first thing you do is return to yourself, not as a reaction, but as a ritual, then presence becomes your power. There's something about the early morning that makes everything feel heavier than it actually is. Even the smallest task like getting up, getting dressed, or moving your body can feel like a mountain, and that's where most people get stuck. We think motivation should come first, that we should feel ready before we act, but truth is motivation is often the last to show up. What actually gets you going is movement, not the other way around. Your body is far more honest than your thoughts, while your mind is still busy making excuses. Your body is ready to go. It's your mind that wants comfort. Your body, it wants rhythm, flow, breath, and when you give it even just 10 minutes of intentional movement, something shifts your mood, lifts your energy, increases your outlook, improves. Why? Because motion clears the fog. The Stoics believe that we should act according to nature, and what's more natural than moving first thing in the morning? Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Sometimes that trial is just shaking off sleep and getting the blood flowing. You don't have to run 5 miles. You don't need a full workout plan. What you need is a signal to your brain. We're not hiding today. We're stepping into it. Carl Jung emphasized the integration of body and psyche, that they aren't separate but intertwined. When you move your body, you awaken the parts of your mind that are under dormant. This is why anxiety softens after a walk, why inspiration strikes in the middle of a stretch. Your thoughts begin to align. When your body stops sitting still, it's not about doing more, it's about reconnecting. Plato once said that the mind and body must be equally balanced, or neither will function well. Most of us are lopsided. We overthink, we undermove, we sit in our thoughts all day and wonder why we feel stuck. But the body is a doorway. When you activate it, even briefly, you unlock momentum. Let's be clear, this isn't about pushing yourself to exhaustion. This is about choosing presence over passivity. When you stretch, walk, do some light yoga, or even just take a few deep breaths at the window, you remind yourself, I'm here, I'm in motion, I'm not waiting to feel ready. I'm becoming ready, and this is where Aristotle's wisdom comes in. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. 10 minutes of movement done consistently builds more than fitness. It builds self-respect because you're showing up not just in theory but physically. Socrates also spoke of harmony, of aligning the soul with the body. He saw physical health not as vanity but as virtue. When you care for your body, you're also shaping your character, and it's through daily actions, the simple, repeatable ones, that you mold who you are. So here's your move tomorrow morning. Don't wait. Don't think about it too much. As soon as you get up, spend just 10 minutes moving, roll your shoulders, walk around the block, stand in sunlight and breathe like it matters. Because it does. Your energy isn't a mystery. It's not locked behind some secret formula. It's built slowly and steadily through movement. And the sooner you start, the faster it grows. You don't need motivation. You need motion. Most people don't realize it. Relationship with yourself is built on the same foundation as any other relationship: trust. And just like in any relationship, every time you make a promise and don't follow through, something fractures. It's subtle, almost invisible at first. You tell yourself you'll wake up early, or go for that walk, or stay off your phone for the first hour, but then you don't. And you do that a few more times, until eventually your words start to mean less. Even to you. What we don't talk about enough is how deeply that affects your confidence. Not the loud kind of confidence, the performative stuff but the quiet inner belief that says, say I'll do something, I do it. That's the kind of confidence that changes everything. And the truth is, it doesn't take massive changes to build it. You don't need to become a different person overnight. You need one small promise and the courage to keep it. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be and then do what you have to do. Simple, director, no fluff. He wasn't talking about grand plans or perfect routines. He was talking about integrity, about becoming someone whose actions match their words. And that starts with the smallest things. Plato believed that harmony in the soul came from consistency when reason and action were in sync. That means when you keep even one promise a day, you create internal alignment. You feel less scattered, more certain. You stop feeling like you're living two lives, one where you plan and one where you delay it. It doesn't have to be complicated. It could be as simple as drinking a full glass of water the moment you wake up, or standing outside for a minute to breathe, or making your bed before you check your phone. The action itself doesn't matter as much as the message behind it. I said I would do this, and I did that. Message becomes identity, and identity, once rooted in trust, is hard to shake. Socrates once said, to find yourself, think for yourself. Choosing your promise each morning is a way of doing that. It's a declaration. This is what matters to me today, and I will honor it. Not because someone's watching, not because it's part of some productivity trend, but because it's how you rebuild trust with yourself, one quiet act at a time. And here's what happens when you start keeping that promise consistently. You stop needing motivation. You stop negotiating with yourself. You simply become someone who follows through with that version of you. That's where your strength comes from. That's where discipline is born. So try this tomorrow morning. Choose one small thing, one promise, keep it, do it again the next day. Then again, let it be so small you can't fail, and so consistent it becomes part of you. That's how real change begins. Not with pressure, but with self-respect. Not by doing everything, but by doing one thing and doing it well. There's a quiet war going on every morning in the battlefield. It's your attention. The second you wake up, the world starts pulling at it. Notifications, headlines, messages, someone else's agenda, someone else's life, someone else's noise. And most people, without thinking, surrender to it. They consume before they even breathe. They open their phones before they open their eyes. All the way, and slowly over time, they forget what their own thoughts sound like. But what if you did something different? What if you stopped handing over your attention like it's worthless and started treating it like it matters? What if instead of beginning your day as a consumer, you started it as a creator? You don't need to write a novel at sunrise. You don't have to paint a masterpiece or design the next big thing. You just need to create something that's yours. One sentence in a journal, one idea scribbled in a notebook, one intention spoken out loud in the silence of your room. That's not just self-expression. It's self-leadership. Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius, who ran an empire and still made time to write privately in the mornings, believed that we must concentrate every minute like a Roman on doing what's in front of you, with precise and genuine seriousness that includes the minute you wake up instead of drifting into distraction. He urged presence creation is one way we anchor ourselves in that presence. Carl Jung believed that the act of creation was a vital part of individuation. The process of becoming your true self, he said. The creative mind plays with the objects it loves. And the only way to access that creative part of yourself is to give it space. That space doesn't happen accidentally. You have to protect it, especially in the morning when your thoughts are most raw and your energy is untouched by the world. Aristotle talked about the difference between passive living and active living. A reactive life is passive. It waits to be told what to think, what to care about, what to chase. But a creative life, that's active, that's choice, that's agency. And you don't need a grand gesture to start living that way. You just need a few uninterrupted minutes to make something, anything that reflects you. Think about how most people start the day. They reach for their phones, scroll past 100 images of other people's lives, other people's moods, other people's stories, and then they wonder why they feel overwhelmed or behind before they've even had coffee. But when you create before you consume, you flip the script. You choose to begin on your terms. You choose clarity over comparison. Plato once said the beginning is the most important part of their work. He wasn't just talking about tasks. He was talking about the soul's work. How you begin shapes how you see the rest. And if you begin by connecting with yourself, by creating instead of consuming, you walk into the world with more direction, more calm, more strength. So here's the invitation tomorrow morning. Resist the urge to check your phone. Leave it face down out of reach. And before you open up to noise, open up to yourself. Write a thought, speak an intention, sketch. A silly idea, it doesn't have to be deep or profound or polished. It just has to be your Socrates. Believe that an unexamined life wasn't worth living. Creation, even in smallest form, is examination. It's exploration. It's how you reconnect with who you are. Underneath all the layers of distraction, this isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about choosing to shape your day instead of letting it shape you. And the more you create, even just a little, the more you remember that you're not here to chase the world. There's this voice that shows up every time you want to start something new, something meaningful. It's subtle, persuasive, and convincing. It says, wait until you're more prepared, or let's just plan a little more, or the classic, it has to be perfect. That voice feels safe, but it's not helping you grow. It's keeping you stuck. Perfection is a trap dressed as high standards, but really it's fear in disguise. The Stoics never cared about perfect conditions. They knew life was unpredictable and often unfair. That's why they focused on what was wise. Control your next move. Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. That means stop talking about what you're going to do and just do it, even if it's rough, even if it's small, even if it's awkward. The power is in the doing. Carl Jung once said, you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. And that quote hits harder the more you hear it, because most of us are waiting for a magical moment, some surge of clarity, motivation, or certainty that never arrives, but confidence doesn't come before action. It comes from action. You build belief in yourself by following through, not by doing it perfectly, but by doing it anyway. Plato believed that action shapes character, not theory, not intention, action, and it doesn't have to be groundbreaking. It just has to be consistent. Think about a ball on a field. You don't have to score a goal every time. You just have to move the ball forward inch by inch, step by step. That movement repeated daily creates momentum, and momentum, that's where real transformation begins. The reason momentum matters more than motivation is simple. Motivation is emotional. It comes and goes. It's based on how you feel. Momentum is behavioral. It's built by what you do even when you don't feel like it. Aristotle put it this way: we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. So what's your habit? What's the one thing you do that pushes your identity forward? It doesn't need to be dramatic. Maybe it's writing a single paragraph. Maybe it's drinking a full glass of water instead of diving into caffeine. Maybe it's saying no to one unnecessary task or distraction. These little moves, the kind that are easy to overlook, are actually the ones that build resilience, clarity, and self-trust. Over time, Socrates taught that the way to a meaningful life wasn't through grand gestures, through disciplined self-examination and daily action. He wasn't concerned with whether you stumbled. He was concerned with whether you refused to try. So here's the challenge. Choose your move the ball habit. Just one, do it every day. Don't wait to feel ready. Don't wait for the conditions to be perfect. Don't overthink it. Just show up and do it, even if it's messy, even if you're tired, even if you're unsure. That small act is proof that you're still in the game, and over time, those small acts compound. They become identity. They become momentum. They become the quiet force that moves you forward when motivation goes missing. There's a kind of illusion we all fall for, the belief that the person we're becoming is somewhere far off in the future, that once we land the dream job, fix our schedule, or finally get it together, then we'll become the version of ourselves we've been imagining. But that's not how it works. Identity isn't something that suddenly appears one day. It's shaped quietly, moment by moment, especially when no one's watching, especially in the mornings before the noise, before the world demands anything from you. Every single day, you are casting a vote for the person you're becoming, and those votes don't come in the form of big declarations or breakthrough moments. They come in the tiny, quiet choices you make, whether to get up when the alarm rings or hit snooze, whether to start your day with purpose or drift into reaction, whether to move with clarity or stay stuck in yesterday's autopilot. That's where transformation is happening, in the small, repeated decisions that look ordinary but aren't. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, understood this deeply. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside." Key events realize this, and you will find strength. That strength is built in those first few moments of the morning when you reclaim your mind from distractions and center yourself in who you want to be, not who the world is trying to turn you into. Carl Jung would have called this process integration, bringing your conscious desires and unconscious habits into harmony. He believed that wholeness doesn't come from perfection, but from ownership, from taking responsibility for the choices that shape your identity. That means you don't wait for clarity to arrive, you create it. By acting in alignment with the kind of person you want to become. Socrates said, the soul is dyed the color of its thoughts, and the thoughts you allow in first thing in the morning, the way you think about yourself, your day, your purpose, those thoughts become tone of your entire life. So when you start your day without reflection, without awareness, you risk becoming a passive character in your own story. But when you begin with intention, even if it's just one deep breath and a conscious decision to act, you shift from being reactive to being deliberate. Plato believed the key to a just life was order, not just in the world, but in the soul. That kind of internal order doesn't happen by accident. It comes from discipline, from structure, from choosing what matters before the distractions creep in. The way you spend your morning is the blueprint for how you build that inner order. It's not about controlling every detail, it's about anchoring into something real. Before the chaos starts, Aristotle taught that character is formed through habit, not wishful thinking, not lofty goals. Habit and habits are born from repetition. So if you begin each day by rushing, reacting, or checking out, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who waits for life to happen. But if you start with reflection, movement, clarity, or even one small disciplined action, you're telling your mind, this is who we are now. So here's the challenge. And it's simple, but it's not easy. Tomorrow morning, before you pick up your phone, before you check the time, before you scroll or rush or distract yourself, ask one question: what kind of person do I want to be today? Ask it softly, honestly, then take one action, no matter how small, that aligns with the answer. Maybe it's standing tall, maybe it's journaling a single sentence, maybe it's simply sitting in silence and breathing. Doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be intentional, because identity is not built in the big shiny moments. It's forged in the quiet, invisible spaces before the world wakes up, before the pressure hits, before the performance begins. The person you want to become isn't waiting in some distant future. They're shaped by what you do tomorrow. Morning, in the silence, in the stillness, in the smallest choice no one else sees. Thank you for being here, for showing up, and for being part of Stoic Journal. If this resonated with you, there's another video waiting on your screen right now that will take you even deeper. Until next time, keep rising with intention, and remember, the world may be noisy, but your morning is yours.